Hey Zaka family! Zaka is launching an exclusive membership platform to provide you with career development workshops, coaching, community, and so much more. Go to ZakaConnect.com and sign up to receive information on how to access early registration and perks. Hello, everybody. This is Paul Herman, the Prince of Motivation, and host of Zaka Presents My Journey. We're creating this vulnerable and positive platform where you can get inspired and motivated from different leaders from our community. Today, our guest is Greisy Espinoza, who is the Vice President of Compliances at Goldman Sachs. Greisy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Paul. I'm extremely happy for the opportunity and being able to share a little bit of my history with you guys and with everybody.
No, that's right. That's right. I know our Zaka community is ready for that. It's an honor to have you on the podcast, and I'm excited, and I know our listeners are excited to learn about your journey. But before we start, could you tell us a little bit more about your cultural background and where you grew up?
Yes. So I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would say like I'm 100% from the Caribbean. So I was born and raised in the city, which is Santo Domingo. But I have a lot of family in the country, so I would say I have like a mix between the country and the city. So I grew up in the city, and Dominican Republic has really grow exponential. So I feel sometimes when you say the city, people think it's the country, but it's actually a whole city, which I miss dearly. So I moved here back in 2017, but so I was 26 when I moved. So I always say that I was my beginnings and my teenage years and my early young adult life, I live in DR.
Now, how was it growing up, the childhood growing up in DR?
It was, um, I don't know. There's a feeling about growing up in an island that it is hard to put it into words. I guess like you always grow with. We are very family orientated, and when I say family, I also refer to friends. You see your friends as your family. I always say that life. We are very busy, obviously, like we work. I remember my parents working a lot, my aunts, my uncle, but at the same time, we really got together, not just for important events, but after work. Like it was, okay, let's hang out or let's just sit in the sidewalk, which is very famous in the Dominican Republic. You'll see people sitting in the sidewalk with no specific purpose, just sitting there. And that's something that I really remember. So growing up in DR, um, it was a very good experience, and it's something that I say that it made me be the person that I am today. The things that I experienced, not just when it comes to happy memories, but also when it comes to more hardship, hard moments. It shaped your personality. It shaped the way you approach life. It shaped the way you see opportunities. The way you see life is 100% different when you see day to day what it is, the reality, not just for you, but sometimes for your friends, for your family in the island. So I think it was a great experience. I feel I'm mumbling, but I think it was a great experience, and it really shaped me to be the person that I am today.
Now, when you say it shaped you, did it shape your goals as well too? Like, what were some of your goals, like growing up in the Caribbean? I want to say
100%. I think it definitely shaped my goals, because I always say that when you grew seeing how hard it is to get an opportunity, um, you know that the moment you get that opportunity, you have like no chance to play. Like you can afford to play, you can afford to lose opportunities. So one of my main goals was to get an education, and I think this is something that is very common in third world country, especially in the Caribbean. Like education is one of the few things that we see as a door to to move forward in life, to get more opportunities, to sometimes be able to provide for our families. So my goal was always through education, um, get to that position. Unfortunately, in countries like the Dominican Republic, the way our system is a structure. It doesn't matter how much education you get, it's hard to move forward. But that was always my goal. I saw education as a way to move forward in life, um, both as an individual and also like in the economic aspect. And back to your original question, how did it shape me? It shaped me 100%, especially when it comes to my goals, because I always knew that like there's this saying in the DR, I don't know if they say it here, that opportunities are ball and you're supposed to grab them by the hair. So it's kind
Mm,
of saying that
mm,
opportunities are very unique. Um, and when you leave not having opportunities, the moment you get one, like you know the value of that.
mm. And now, do those I'm loving what you're saying right then. I appreciate you talking about like those opportunities. I think those are very, I mean, as immigrants, first generation, you know, an opportunity to come to the U.S., an opportunity to help provide for your family, an opportunity to find a better living for yourself is always like in the forefront, you know. And I want to kind of, you know, peel back a little bit more. And I want to know like what some of the things your parents instilled in you, you know, growing up. What did you see, you know, that inspired you from mom, dad, and, you know, family?
Well, something that I saw from my parents is how hardworking they were, and they still are. I mean, they're retired already, but I always saw them. I till this day, I say that I never heard my dad complaining. No once. I have never heard my dad saying like times are too hard, or I cannot get this job, or this happened or that happened. My dad. And my mom as well, but I'm thinking this specifically towards my dad. He was always like that structure of you have to keep pushing forward. Like it doesn't matter how hard it gets, it doesn't matter how unlikely it seems that it's going to happen, that is something that you want happen. You have to keep pushing forward. So that's something that I saw in my parents. Integrity. My parents never did the wrong thing in the sense of even if a job was not paying good enough, but that was the way to make a living in an honor way, they did that. And I think that's something that I hold close to my heart because they always tried to do the right thing. And also they were always positive. And like I say, something that I always repeat, if I never heard my dad complaining about a situation or how hard was things or this job is not paying enough or this and that. And that's something that I try to bring here, that mentality of I need to keep pushing forward. I can't afford I mean, I can be a little on my feelings or weak one day, but I can't afford to lose time. I can afford to waste an opportunity.
Hmm. Now, I'm assuming that those types of mindsets and stuff like that your parents gave to you and you learned in DR, it carried over to where you became, got your law degree. Now, that's something very big right there. Like, how did you get into that?
Yes, 100%. I think, and it's funny because not that many people. Well, after I graduated from law school, a couple family members they went to law school. But when I went to law school, I remember I just had like one uncle that he used to be an attorney, but he passed away in an accident. But my parents, they don't have a law um, background. And I decided still to go to law school just because I always say that I like to know things and I like to have, and the things that I like the most about law is that you can be an expert in whatever you decide. If you want to be an expert in a sport law, then you can go there. If you like finance, you can go there. So it's just so open that having that opportunity really appealed to me. And I went to law school. It was hard because I had to start working right away. I remember I just had probably like 2 semesters and I started working. And there's this saying that in the art they say that a student that work are worker that study, because sometimes you have to prioritize work and it's hard, but you have to do it because you need to pay school and you need to pay transportation. So trying to juggle like those two things, it was very, very hard. But again, I have my parents' support when even when it comes to little things like the food. I remember my mom putting the food together for me to take to work. And afterward, then I had to go to law school. It was really a challenge. But even that, I say, is it's really helping me out in my career now.
Mm-hmm. Now you receive your law degree in DR, is that correct?
Yes, that's
And
correct.
then, and then how do you transition from DR to the US?
Yes. Well, when I made the transition, well, maybe I should say that one of the things that I like the most about law is that I love solving problems. Like I love when someone comes to me with a problem and they tell me just figure it out. Like I like that even though it sounds weird, but if there's anything that I like more than solving problem is preventing problems. If someone can come to me and tell me like I'm trying to avoid this problem, then that's my niche. So I knew when I moved here that I wanted to go into compliance, which is what I do right now, um, because I think compliance is that. And the way that I like to define compliance is that people tend to think that compliance is a wall between them and revenue or between them and the big projects. But when you can sit down with the business or with this team and explain to them, I want you to do your big project, but these are the things that you're going to have to do in order to do it. Like it's like we're a wall, but we're a wall between you and problems. I'm not a wall between you and your revenue and you and your great ideas. So when I moved here, I knew I wanted to do compliance and I knew I wanted to do finance. So I had a lot of international experience, not just in the Dominican Republic, but I also had the opportunity to work with companies across Latin America. And that really allowed me to be an asset to any company here because I was bringing not just my knowledge from the Dominican Republic, but I was also bringing like knowledge from other countries. And people sometimes they don't tend to realize how valuable it is to have knowledge or not even knowledge. I wouldn't say knowledge, but it's like that culture sensitivity when it comes to the workplace, that you can sit down with someone from Brazil and understand where he's coming from just because I understand the culture and I understand how they do business.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, with that being said, like, being an attorney is a major accomplishment. Like, what inspired you to leave that world in a sense and move to the US?
Well, I think when we move, well, I cannot speak obviously for everybody, but everybody comes here for different reasons. And I think one of the reason, and I think I briefly say it earlier, but it's like, even though I love where I come from. I think Dominican Republic is a great place, a happy place. You can just tell. It's just you land in the island and you just feel life. However, sometimes, most of the time, you can work your entire life and you cannot accomplish anything. And it's not because you're not putting the work, but it's because society, like political situation, the way it's structured, it is just for a group to be able to access certain opportunities. Like it does what it has. And I think it's something that happened in all the places. However, my experience here was different because here, when I moved here, I, I don't have no one. I don't have no network. I have obviously I did my work. I reached out to people, but I feel like, unfortunately, in some of our countries, it's like I have seen people that they work their entire life, and sometimes they cannot afford to buy a fan that costs $50. They have to save to buy something, and you might think this is crazy, but it's true. Like it is so, and it's a little sad when you spend 4 years taking public transportation and going to school and the life that you can afford it is not equal to what you went through. And I always say someone that have go to school, and like anybody, but someone that have spent years in school and have made a sacrifice should have access to a life with dignity, and they don't have to worry about $50.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the main drive. It's like you want to move forward, and obviously you're looking for better opportunities, and you are looking for the sacrifice that your parent did. It's worth it.
I see what you're saying. And now you're talking about a key word when we're going to talk about struggles, right? I want to know a little bit more about like what are some of the struggles you face, when you move to the U.S. looking for a job.
Yes. Some of the struggle that I face moving to the US, first, I will say is the language. I think, and sometimes it's something that we have in our head. It's like, I have an accent. And I remember in the beginning, I was very afraid to talk because, I was afraid that I was going to get caught in a moment that I didn't know what to say, or I was going to mispronounce a word. And I think with time, I just say, I'm going to talk, and whatever people can understand, they're going to understand. But I think language, and be so self-conscious of your accent was one. The other one was that I would say that when you move here, you are kind of like in a limbo because you are, for some positions, you have too much experience and they don't hire you. And for other positions, you have too little experience and they don't hire you. So you're like in a limbo, like they don't know what to do with you. And sometimes I think it's because companies, they don't know how to handle diversity. They don't have the resource or appropriate teams that can know how to navigate that. And I remember when I was applying, it was hard for me to explain my education because in the art, our education system is a little bit different than here. After high school, I went directly to law school, and that was hard to explain. So I think like one of the main struggle was that you are really in a limbo. It's like you're not here or there, and companies, they're like, I don't know what to do with you. Like, I don't want to hire you because I think you're going to leave me in 6 months, and I cannot hire you as an attorney because you don't have experience as an attorney here, but I cannot hire you as a secretary because you are too experienced and you're going to leave me. So
I get you. Like you're too high, but then you're still too low. It's like that. Like you said, like that limbo, and that is a very challenging thing, for anybody that's in that position. I know that obviously you had to mentally stay focused, and really push through that time in your life. And I know, like you said, that the language barrier was a very hard thing at first. I think accents are beautiful, right? I know in certain professions, it's not really acceptable, and I know that must have been a very hard hit for you, walking into an establishment and, one of the first things people are acknowledging is not how good of a worker you are, but your accent, so
yes.
I'm glad that you, kept on it with all those things, those that your parents instilled with you and, your culture instilled in you at a young age, to kind of really push you through that, Could you give an example of like how recruiters might have been demeaning during your job search?
Yeah, 100%. I had so much experience with recruiter. Honestly, that I think we have a love-hate relationship. But yeah, so I think like one of the most vivid in my mind was because I remember this one specifically because it was like kind of right after I landed my first opportunity with Goldman Sachs. Is back to the same thing of having to explain my education. I remember I applied and she called me and she's like, hey, like, I don't really understand your resume. Can you like kind of like restructure? And I had no idea what she wanted, but I did restructure. I tried to explain everything. And then she called me and she said, like, listen, you're not going to get a job. I cannot understand this. And I would recommend you to go back to school. And I know. And I know that I shouldn't have taken it personal, but I did took it personal because you're talking about my life. And it's not like I could pull like $20,000 and go to school. And I think that was, but again, also another reason why sometimes I know that we shouldn't take it personal is because, again, sometimes company they don't have the knowledge to deal with diversity.
That is correct. That is correct.
So it's not that she's trying to be mean, but she just doesn't. She probably have never ever had to recruit someone that doesn't have like the standard path. So when she say that, like I was completely destroyed because it's like I cannot go back to school. Like I cannot even afford anything, especially not going back to school. Um, and also like the moment she say that, it's kind of like she's taking away everything that I have done.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You work so hard, and then you got somebody to be like, yeah, not even like come back in the next couple of weeks, months.
Mhm.
I need you to probably take a training course. No, you need to go back to school.
I know. It's like
And with
it,
no real direction, not even like go back to school for this because this position is in, really focusing on this type of law versus this type, or maybe read a book or listen to a podcast. Nah, she just said go back to school. So, wow. Well,
yeah.
that recruiter will be very upset that to find out where you are right now, right? So,
I know. And it's like, it's funny because that you say that with no direction, because that was another thing. It's like, you are so lost. Like, you don't know what to do, especially even when it comes to school. It's like, you just don't know what to do. Like, you don't know if to what people reach out. You don't have a network. It is quite confusing. Like, if I could describe the feeling when you already have your work permit and like you're ready and set to go and you think like you're gonna find all these great opportunities, and it's like, nope. It's like it's just so confusing. You don't know to what roles you should apply. You also don't know how things are managed here when it comes to the workforce. So yeah, so it was very confusing. I have other interviews where they made me go multiple times. It was quite of experience.
mm, well, I'm glad you made it out. And you obviously you took it personal at that point in time, but you grew from that experience. And I want to know what kept you motivated during this time. Obviously hearing something like that could really knock somebody off. What kept you motivated to keep moving forward?
Honestly, sometimes when they say that you don't even know how you did it, I think like no, I'm joking. Like it's kind of like a little bit of that because sometimes you look back and you say like, wow, it was hard. Like, it was hard. But I think that what kept me motivated was that my parents, my partner, like there were so many people that loved me that they kept telling me you should like keep going. I remember seeing a lot of YouTube videos. I feel like I had that stage that I was looking everything on YouTube. So it's like people who got a job in the United States. So I remember like looking for those videos and like listening to them how they did it, even if it was something completely different from my field. But I feel like hearing people's stories, it was like very refreshing. And this is why I feel like we should share what we went through, and we should say like, it's hard but you can do it. Because I remember knowing people with my same background that they told me like, oh no, like that's too hard, don't do it. And I think that's something that I don't want to do. I want to say like, yeah, it's hard, you're going to have to put the work. Like I used to study, like study like I was going to go for an exam when I was going for an interview. Like I I studied the history of the company. I studied like this and that. So I think like what kept me going was, I have my family back home, and it's not like if I didn't made it, they would love me less. But the fact that I know that they believe in me so much, and my friends and all that, it's kind of like it really help you to keep going. It really help you to say like, what. And I think like that goes back to what we were talking in the beginning. It's like, that the chances of you getting an opportunity, they are very minimum. They are, but there is. And if I were to find one, I was gonna grab it because I know that opportunities sometimes don't show twice. And
Mhm.
and I always say that if I get because I say like I wanted to work at Goldman Sachs, and I say if I were to get an interview, I'm gonna get that job because I just have one shot, and I'm gonna take it.
And that's what happened. So right now, I know you're currently the VP of compliance at Goldman Sachs. Could you tell us a little bit more about the process and how you got that job, especially working for like a major financial institution, one of them in the world, right? So like, how did that go about?
Yes, yeah, 100%. Like, being working at Goldman Sachs was a dream that I still walk. Sometimes I'm walking to my desk and I think like, wow, I'm really working here, and it's funny because I know I am, and because I know I have all this work to do, but sometimes it's quite unbelievable. So I was lucky enough that I came more blessed enough that I came across a nonprofit organization that that is called Oboli Global, and they help immigrants to navigate the workforce. And through them, I knew about Goldman Sachs and the programs. Goldman Sachs is an institution that really believes in diversity, and they really believe in seeking their talent, the best talent, the best out of the best, but from different places. They don't believe that the best of the best is going to be in this university or is going to be from this background. They believe the best can come in different shapes, and they really go out there. So the way I started Goldman Sachs is that I was part of the returnship program. So the returnship program is a program that is dedicated to professionals that have been out of the workforce for at least 2 years. So sometimes you see a lot of women that have been out of the workforce for 18 years, like raising their kids, and they want to come back to the workforce. And Goldman says, like, you know what, like, if you're good, if you're the best, I want you. And so that's how I start. And I did that program. Then the pandemic hit, and I wasn't working, and then I came back in bank compliance. So that was
Mm-hmm.
kind of like on a high level the journey.
Mm-hmm. Well, honestly, like that's the fact that you're able to go from DR, get a law degree, come out here, have recruiters telling you that you're not good enough for a position, end up at Goldman Sachs, and you love what you do. And like you said, Goldman Sachs is not looking just for that one individual. They don't think that they believe in diversity, is what you're telling me. And I feel like that's something you've been always looking for. Do you
Mhm.
feel like you apply your international experience and your legal background? Do you think that they help you in your position?
Yes, 100%. I think my international experience is an asset in a lot of different levels, but I will say one of the main levels is when it comes to like culture sensitivity and having like different perspective, I will say. And my legal background, I think, is in compliance was something that was very new to me, and it was refreshing to see if that you will see different professionals from different areas in compliance. But having a legal background, obviously having that critical thinking and that legal analysis skill, it really helped me out. And the fact that I had international experience is also an asset because, like I say, especially when you are in an institution that is across the world, um, I think it's an asset.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, no, I think that's all those things do make a big difference, and it obviously has shaped and molded you into the person that you are now. I honestly, I'm just very impressed with what you've been expressing. Is there any like major words or things that you would encourage someone who's, whether coming from DR or just looking to get into working at Goldman Sachs? Is there anything you would encourage?
Yes, I think one thing that I can say is like put the effort, like put the work on it, really dedicate. Don't, if I can tell you the times that I felt defeated there, and also a lot of network, I feel like that's very important, and that's something that at least from DR, at least when I left DR, it's something that is not as common. Like, people don't really do network. Like, people don't really use LinkedIn to reach out to people they want to contact. Here, I think it's very like helpful. And I remember reaching out people on LinkedIn and telling them like, this is what I'm doing. And I was very surprised on how many people told me, yes, I'm willing to sit down with you 3 minutes. I still remember a lot of people from JP Morgan, from BlackRock, from a lot of places that were willing to sit down with me and told. Actually, I remember the person who told me that I should look into, uh, that reinforced the fact that I should look into compliance was um, a managing director from JP Morgan that I contact him through LinkedIn. And so I think if I should, if I will say something to someone that, is coming from whether DR or any other place, is to really use their resource, reach out to people, because you will be surprised on how many people are really willing to help you. And also to put the work to just push it, like really push it. Even the days that you feel like you don't want to do anything, just do a little something and just keep going. Because I know it sounds cliche, but it's at the end, it's gonna pay off.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of my last questions, if not my last question to you, and I want to say you did a phenomenal job today in regards to giving us a lot of understanding of what you do and how you got to where you are right now. But like, you obviously are working for one of the most prestigious institutions in the world. How do you use like your Latino background to advocate for other minorities?
Yeah, well, I am actually so Goldman Sachs have different how can I say, like, network within GS that you can like connect with people from different backgrounds. It's like the Black network, I think, Spanish network, Hispanic network. So I think just being involved on those network and trying to, obviously, not directly at Goldman Sachs, but even outside, when when I have the chance to talk with someone that have, like, even if it's not my similar background, but someone who is from a minority, maybe they don't come from the R, or they don't come from another country, but they are here and they are a minority, like, speak to them and really tell them like, hey, listen, I know where you're coming from, like, I went through that. It's not impossible. um, so we have an intern and he has a Spanish background, and I told him, like, listen, we are breaking generational, like, a standard that, oh, like, this is what we're supposed to do, but no, we are. So I think it's just like I just keep myself engaged with people, that even if we don't have the similar background, but we want the same, we want to see other people succeed, especially like people who don't have that much access to opportunities, because unfortunately sometimes, it's sometimes it's what you have, and you have to like play the cards that life give you and just move forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, young lady, I just want to say thank you so much, for joining us tonight, and just giving us a lot of information about your journey. And I think that if anything that the listeners are going to definitely gravitate to is the fact of the keyword opportunity. It seems like a lot of those opportunities, whether it be in DR or whether it be here in the US, you definitely have taken each opportunity like the bull by the horns and actually like really push through. So I commend you. Again, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. It has been truly a pleasure for me.
Mm-hmm. And to the listeners, if you want to hear more inspirational stories like Greisy, please check us out on ZakaConnect.com. Follow our social at Zaka Connect and follow our feed, Zaka, wherever you listen to your podcasts.